Okay, guys and girls, welcome back. Welcome back to my channel. As promised, I said I was going to do an update on the Ahmaud Arbery case, and I've done my research. I've gotten all of the information and the facts that are available, and I have to admit, I'm ready to apologize. I'm ready to apologize because I was wrong. I was wrong that any of this new information that came out would have changed my mind about me thinking Ahmaud Arbery was murdered in cold blood. I was wrong. I'm sorry. However, for the purposes of being fair, being thorough, giving you everything I have, I'm going to tell you what else I found out. And in fact, I think it just makes the whole situation look kind of worse for the McMichaels, not for Ahmaud Arbery. Since I posted my first video on this, new information and evidence has emerged, as is common in cases that are constantly evolving. Today, we're going to discuss this new evidence and talk about what it means and if it changes anything. If it changes anything for you, it hasn't changed anything for me. So let's talk about the surveillance video of Ahmaud Arbery in the house under construction the day he was shot. This new video shows Ahmaud inside the house, walking around, checking things out, and then he leaves without touching anything. So that's pretty much it, right? He didn't steal anything. He didn't vandalize anything. He was in an unoccupied house under construction looking around.
This surveillance video obtained by our Atlanta affiliate WSB will certainly be part of the debate. It was recorded shortly before Arbery was killed and shows a man walking into an open home construction site and looking around. Arbery's family attorneys say they believe this second video obtained by ABC News does show the 25-year-old former football player in that home under construction. But they underline that he wasn't breaking the law and left empty-handed.
Did he have plans to steal something or to do something illegal? I have no idea. We can't ask him. He's dead. Now, Chris Cuomo of CNN gave 2 interviews this past week that we're going to be talking about. One with the homeowner of this house under construction, a man named Larry English, and one with the gentleman that taped Ahmaud's shooting, William Roddy Bryan. They were 2 very different interviews, even though both men brought along their lawyers. One lawyer let her client talk, one did not. And you can see Chris Cuomo responding kind. And the video with William Bryan and his lawyer is just so cringy, so embarrassing. I mean, I don't know if Mr. Bryan was involved in what happened to Ahmaud. I don't know if he's guilty, but I felt bad for him because, well, you'll see. You'll see. Let's first talk about the owner of the home, Larry English. He gave an interview with CNN's Chris Cuomo this past week. Larry English says that he didn't want the video to be put out and to be used or misinterpreted, that he was accusing Mr. Arbery of anything. He also says he doesn't believe whatsoever that Mr. Arbery had taken anything from his house that day.
You never filed any report. You never called 911 about this video.
The video of February 23rd, I made no calls.
Do you believe that Arbery stole anything from your house that day?
No, whatsoever.
Now, the McMichaels told police in the police report here that he had been seen, Arbery had been seen on surveillance video. Did you share this video with the McMichaels?
No, not whatsoever.
Mr. English also said he never shared the surveillance video with the McMichaels. In fact, he himself didn't even view it until after Arbery was dead. He claims that he never directly even told the McMichaels that someone had been on his property multiple times. So following this, we have to wonder how the McMichaels would have had the direct knowledge required to make a citizen's arrest if they didn't physically see Arbery in the house that day. And Mr. English had never shown them video footage of Ahmaud in his house or told them anything about it. Now, as far as the fishing gear that had been stolen off of Mr. English's property, this was the one place where I was like, oh, has somebody been there in the past and has stolen things from the property? Was it Ahmaud? But Mr. English says that it was taken out of context and blown out of proportion. The equipment was taken from a boat that was in the garage, not the actual structure itself. And this boat had also been transported from Brunswick, where the location of his house under construction was, to his current location, which was 2 hours away from Brunswick, and he didn't file a police report because he had no way of knowing when the stuff was taken from the boat. It could have happened before the boat left Brunswick. It could have happened at some point on the journey from Brunswick to where he was. It could have happened when he got there. He doesn't know.
And didn't you report, though, that you believe something had been taken from the house, but you couldn't identify who did it?
No.
So
that's a false accusation.
Oh, good to know. Thank you very much. So you never reported anything about any fishing equipment or anything like that?
The instance with the fishing equipment has got blown out of proportion. That was out of a boat, not out of the structure. And I'm not exactly sure when or where that happened. The boat was transported from Brunswick to our location to where we live 2 hours away. And I never filed a report on that because I don't know for sure exactly where it happened.
Boy, you're right. That is getting thrown all over the place as a potential other situation that Arbery may have been involved in. And just to be clear, you never filed it, you've never accused him, and you don't have any reason to believe that Ahmaud Arbery had anything to do with that.
That is correct.
And there is another surveillance video, which was taken on February 11th, just 12 days before Ahmaud was shot. At this time, it seems Travis McMichael called the police to report a light-skinned black male wearing a red shirt and white pants. And he said that this person was trespassing on a construction site. Here is that video.
What's your name and phone number, sir?
Travis McMichael. I just called a guy running into a house being built 2 houses down from me. When I turned around, he took off running into the house.
Are you okay?
Yeah. It just startled me. When I turned around and saw him and backed up, he reached into his pocket and ran into the house. So I don't know if he's armed or not.
These security camera videos from inside that construction site do show a young black man repeatedly visiting and walking around. But in every recording, the person is seen walking away empty-handed, and the owner has reported no thefts.
Now, the McMichaels, as well as another neighbor, a man named Diego Perez, says that the man on the tape and Ahmaud Arbery are one and the same. But there are people out there who saying they don't look like the same person at all. Are they the same person? Are they a different person? At this point, it hasn't been confirmed that this guy from the February 12th video is Ahmaud Arbery. We don't know. It could be Ahmaud Arbery. It could be a different guy. But what we do know is nothing was taken at that time or on the day that Ahmaud Arbery was shot. So Larry English lives 70 miles south of Brunswick in Savannah, Georgia, and his lawyer has made a statement that nothing was ever taken from the English property and that her client is deeply distressed by the death of Ahmaud Arbery.
Counselor, let me get you in here for a second. You gave us a statement saying that from Larry, just to understand the reckoning of his perspective on this. When Larry saw the photos of Mr. Arbery, his first impression was that Arbery was not the man captured on video inside the house on February 23rd, and that he said that to the neighbor.
Yes, my understanding is that when Larry got the alert that the video had come into his phone, it took him about 20 minutes to look at it, and when he did, he called a neighbor just a couple of houses down and said, my video is showing someone's in the house. Is there someone there? And the neighbor told him, well, someone was, but he's been killed. And so, by the time Larry even saw the video, Mr. Arbery had been killed. And I think it was pretty soon after that Larry saw some photos of Mr. Arbery, and he had not known him before. And when he saw those photos, he did not believe it looked like the man who is in the video from February 23rd. And then subsequently we heard that probably was him, but my understanding is Larry didn't think it resembled him. But Larry can speak to that if I've gotten that wrong, but that's my understanding.
That squares with your reckoning, right, Mr. English?
Yes, correct. I know of Travis. I only know him of just one introduction, and that was a very short, brief introduction.
But you had nothing to do with what triggered their interest in Mr. Arbery on February 23rd.
He wasn't even there that day.
No
he was 2 hours away.
You weren't there. You didn't speak to him on the phone. You didn't give them access to the surveillance video. You didn't contact them and tell them what had been seen at your home.
No.
On the night of February 11th, Larry got a text alert that there was motion inside his house in Brunswick, 2 miles away from him, so he texted his neighbor, Diego Perez, asking him to check on the house. Perez sent a text back to Mr. English saying, "The police showed up and we all searched for a good while. I think he got spooked and ran after Travis confronted him. Travis says the guy ran into the house. Let me know if he shows up or if they find him." So it is pretty obvious, right? Even though Larry English himself didn't let the McMichaels in on what happened in his house, Diego Perez did let the McMichaels in on what happened. According to Perez, on February 11th, Travis saw this man in the yard and confronted him halfway into the yard, but then the man reached for something in his waistband and Travis got spooked and went down the road where he called the police. So once again, this shows a pattern of taking the law into your own hands before calling the police. The police reached out to Larry English, who said he believed the man was just trespassing and hadn't taken anything. Okay, let's move on, because as of now, even with this new evidence, I don't see a felony being committed, which is really the only time a citizen can technically perform a citizen's arrest on another person. Let's talk about Gregory McMichael, who we have been told is a retired police officer. And yes, that's technically true, but he only retired 4 months after the suspension of his law enforcement certification, after repeated failures to complete required training. There was also a 2014 warning that McMichael had neglected to finish mandatory firearms and use of force courses. Jackie Johnson is a DA in the Brunswick Judicial Circuit, and she was also the first person to recuse herself from the case, as Greg had previously worked under her as an investigator from 1995 to 2019. There have been allegations made against Jackie Johnson. 2 Glynn County commissioners have reported that before this happened, Johnson's office told police investigators to refrain from arresting the McMichaels after Ahmaud was killed, and obviously she denies this. So I'm recording this video on May 18th, and as of May 16th, this article from The Hill says Georgia protesters call for district attorney's removal after Ahmaud Arbery's death. Protesters in Georgia are calling for the removal of the district attorney they claim mishandled the case of the fatal shooting of Ahmaud Arbery, a young black man who was killed while jogging near Brunswick, Georgia in February. And here's why people are pissed, right? It took a total of 74 days between when Ahmaud Arbery was shot and when arrests were made. So that's an excessive amount of time, right? And we're all saying now, if this video hadn't been leaked, if this video hadn't come out, and it appears now that the video of Ahmaud being shot was leaked by the lawyer of William Roddy Bryan because he thought that it would make his client look better, I believe, but it was leaked by this lawyer. And if that video had never come out, if nobody had ever seen it, nothing would have happened to Greg or Travis McMichael. Nothing. And that's the issue here, right? It shouldn't take a national outrage. It shouldn't take, famous people coming forward and saying, this is wrong, for the people in Georgia who make the laws and enforce them to know that it's wrong. And Jackie was the person who was in charge initially. And now it's being said that she specifically told police to not arrest the McMichaels and not pursue the case any further. She says that never happened. It's an outright lie. However, they weren't arrested and nothing was pursued. So who told the police not to arrest them? Who made that call? And it looks like Greg McMichael was stripped of his powers to arrest people on at least 2 occasions. Once in January of 2006 because of an undisclosed infraction from the previous year, and again in February of 2019 when the Georgia Peace Officer Standards and Training Council issued a suspension for failure to maintain training for the year of 2018. The commission notified Greg's then boss, Jackie Johnson, to make her aware that he'd fallen short in various types of training hours in 2005, 2006, 2007, 2009, and 2010. According to his employment records, Greg McMichael did not complete his mandated use of force and firearms training for at least 3 of these years. Now, Greg McMichael applied for a waiver for the missing training hours, citing a difficult time at home and numerous health issues both he and his wife were suffering from between 2006 and 2009. He wrote, quote, "I do not offer this information as an excuse. I know full well that I was responsible for attending the proper amount of training but failed to do so. The years 2006 to 2009 were a very difficult period in my life. I allowed the difficulty of the situation to cloud my judgment." Now, his waiver was granted in 2014, and he was allowed to continue serving as an investigator. But 5 years later, in February of 2019, problems arose again. Greg McMichaels agreed to give up his badge and weapon, and he was reclassified as a non-sworn employee assigned to work in the Camden County DA's office until his retirement the following June. A February 2019 memo signed by Greg McMichaels stated that he will not engage in any activity that would be construed as law enforcement in nature. He would not be allowed to carry a badge or a firearm or drive a police vehicle. So theoretically, if someone is a police officer and they don't do the things that they need to do to remain a police officer who has the right to carry a gun and a badge and make arrests, should that person, when they retire, be able to make citizens arrests? This shows the issue with the citizens arrest law. Police officers have to complete certain training on firearms, on use of excessive force. They need to do that in order to maintain their privileges to arrest people. But regular citizens don't have to do any of that training, and I have felt this way about guns for a long time. I'm not anti-gun. I appreciate what a firearm can do as far as protection. Owning a firearm is a right that we have. However, I don't think that just anybody should be able to own and operate a gun. Just like you need a license and you need to take tests and you need to learn things before you get in a car and drive it around, so should it be with guns. You should have to take classes, learn how to shoot a gun, and pass a test before you're allowed to be a gun owner. And that's just not the case. And there are so many people I know who own guns who don't even know how to shoot them. And that's very dangerous, right? So what's the big deal if you have to go through all this background checks and you have to go through a mental health check and all of this to get a gun? Would it be really difficult to send somebody to a course like you do driver's ed in order to learn how to operate a gun safely? But we got off on a little tangent there. That's just how I feel about guns. I'm not against them, but I'm against people using them who don't know how to. So people like Greg and Travis McMichael, not that they don't know how to use guns, I'm sure they know how to use them very well. But the fact that they're irresponsible with them, the fact that they use them in everyday life like it's normal or acceptable, the fact that they think that they can just jump in a truck and follow somebody with guns and this person is supposed to just do whatever they want. What you have here in Georgia and in other states that allow this kind of behavior is a culture of inequality. What you're telling people is, if I have a gun and you don't, you have to do what I say. You have to obey me. So therefore, you're not all equal, are you? If one person who has a gun has more power over somebody who doesn't, has the ability to give them commands and give them orders, and then shoot them when they don't follow those commands and orders. Now, a mysterious note was left at the memorial for Ahmaud, which has raised the possibility of a third witness. It reads, "Ahmaud, I am so sorry. I should have stopped them. I am so sorry." The Arbery family was trying to figure out who wrote the note, hoping to find out more information about what happened the day he died. It turns out it wasn't anybody who was connected to the case. It was just a stranger, just another citizen who felt really bad about what happened to him. And that leads us to the fourth man who was there that day, William Roddy Bryan. He claims he was outside his own home when he saw Travis and Greg in pursuit of Ahmaud, so he followed and filmed it. He claims he's not proud of this, but he believes that without the video, there would have been no arrests. And I agree with this. It's true. He also claimed he doesn't know the McMichaels at all. At all. And that he was not part of a vigilante mob going after Ahmaud Arbery. Now, Bryan recently had an interview with Chris Cuomo of CNN, and his lawyer persists that his client has done nothing wrong and has committed no crime, even though he refuses to clarify why Bryan was following Arbery that day. Now, the police report states Roddy attempted to block Arbery in and was unsuccessful. And here's the kicker. His lawyer basically tells Chris Cuomo that William Roddy Bryan isn't smart enough to answer the kinds of questions that Chris would ask. He said, quote, "My client is a mechanic with a high school education, and if you've ever been to the high schools around here, that's not necessarily saying much." As William Roddy Bryan sits right there and listens to this, and the look on Bryan's face when his lawyer says this, he kind of just looks down like defeated. I don't know. But is this what you're paying your lawyer to do? Make you look stupid and illiterate and inept on national television? How embarrassing. And it's embarrassing to everybody in Georgia.
Mr. Bryan, you are known as Roddy to friends, correct?
That's right.
And in the police report, the McMichaels referred to a Roddy. I'm assuming that was you, yes?
Hey, hold on, Chris. You've been a prosecutor, and you can imagine that this prosecutor that's been in this case 24 hours, she's going to start throwing stuff around her living room if you start doing her job for her. Okay, because as good as you are, she'd probably rather do it herself. you know what we could talk about without causing problems for anybody, and I know you're trying, but this man cannot be answering substantive questions about the case. And if you feel that we've misled you in some way, I'm sorry.
No. It's not about misleading. It's about just being clear for the audience. Okay. I always believe that the best opportunity the media can give you is the opportunity to tell the truth in a way that helps you. That's all I'm saying. I don't know why you would dispute the notion of the man's presence at the situation, but that's fine. Let me move on. And you, counselor, should weigh in whenever you feel like it. So, Mr. Bryan, how did you come to be in the car videotaping that day? You don't want to talk about that either. All right, so let's do this. You are afraid of the facts of this case, Counselor. Why?
Sir, I'm not afraid of anything. And I'm certainly not, with all due respect,
sure.
I'm not afraid of you, but I respect you.
And I respect you.
You are a brilliant, very capable lawyer, and you are you are a very good prosecutor. And my client is a mechanic with a high school education, and if you've ever been to the high schools around here, that's not necessarily saying much. Okay? And I don't mind if the Board of Education doesn't like it. I'm not their friend either. Okay? But you can't be asking him questions about the substance of the evidence, because like I said, there's a young lady that's been in this case less than 24 hours who's going to be throwing stuff around her living room, and I don't want her mad at me, and I don't want her mad at my client.
I understand.
On the other hand, if you want to ask him about his experiences here, how he feels, I don't have a problem with that.
Okay. Let me ask him one question, then I want to get back to you, Mr. Goff, because you have a different latitude than he does.
Sure, sir.
And just for the record, I do not believe that a level of education is in any way commensurate with common sense or savvy or understanding everything that you need to know about this case just through life experience. I want you to know that. I don't care that he only went to high school. Plenty of people have done that and achieved great things, let alone know why the heck they were in a car videotaping something like this. But let's put it to the side.
Now, I don't live in Georgia. I've been to Georgia once. I think it was accidental. My brother was graduating from the Marine Corps at Parris Island in South Carolina. I was like 9 years old, and we went to go see his graduation, but my mom took a wrong turn somehow, and we ended up in Savannah, Georgia. This was before we had like GPS and stuff, so she just had a map she was following. But we ended up in Savannah, Georgia, and then we ended up in Atlanta for a while too. It's like the one and only time I've ever been in Georgia. And I can tell you that I believe some of the most beautiful women in the world live in Atlanta, Georgia. However, I don't think that the people of Georgia would appreciate this insinuation that they're not smart because schools in Georgia aren't good, so therefore all the people in Georgia are stupid.
Because my client has done nothing wrong here. He's committed no crime, and this is a horrible tragedy. This young man has lost his life, and you've seen the video. On a scale of 1 to 10, it's horrifying to watch. It's painful to watch, even for a former prosecutor like yourself, and I'm sure you've seen lots of grisly incidents. So this is a terrible matter, and some people are going to have to answer for what they did, but my client is not responsible for that. My client was unarmed. My client hasn't shot anybody. My client hasn't been in so much as a fist fight since he was in high school. And you can take a look at him. He's 5'6", 5'7". This is not a gentleman who's out there looking for a fight.
I understand. I understand, but often, of course, as we both know, again, okay. Mr. Goff, I'm not putting your guy on trial, okay? That's not my job. My job is this doesn't make any damn sense, this situation. And somebody wound up dead. And as we both know, the smaller you get, the more likely you are to use a weapon to make any kind of a show of force. So I don't care about the size of the people involved. It's about the size of their heart and the size of their brain. What I want to know is this. When you say that your client should not be considered as part of the altercation, I'm assuming...
He is not considered part of the altercation, Chris. He is a witness, and that's all. That's all he's ever been.
And the Arbery family attorney, Lee Merritt, does believe that Bryan had a bigger role in this than he's admitting to. He alleges that Bryan was an armed accomplice working with the McMichaels. He says in the video Bryan took of the shooting, you can hear the cocking of a gun that coincides with the down tilt of the camera. Now, Bryan's lawyer says his client was unarmed and not someone who was out looking for a fight. And he says something like, look at him, he's 5'8", he's not the kind of guy who's going to go out looking for a fight. I don't know what his height has to do with his personality or his ability to become involved in a situation like this, but that's what he said. William Roddy Bryan has not answered the question of how he happened to be there that day or why he chose to pull his phone out to record the altercation instead of calling the police. His lawyer's reasoning for him not answering a very direct and simple question is because his client is stupid, and he can't be asked questions of substance.
What is your reservation, again, for your client doing what he is eminently capable of doing, saying why he was where he was, why he videotaped as he did, and what he understands happened that day? Why do you not want him to say what can only help clear his name?
Because, Chris, in America, as I believe you're well aware, we try our cases in courts of law. And this thing where we've come to in this country over the years, where important cases are being tried in newspapers and on television and on blogs and stuff, that is not serving the interests of justice.
But
And
he's
if
not
you
on
were a
trial.
prosecutor
He's
in
not
this
going to be
case,
on trial, is he?
If he doesn't control anything, he is a pawn in a much larger game, and he has no say-so in that.
But he is a witness, and we
there
have
are people
witnesses
out
on
there
all the time,
who
so the
have
American people can understand maybe that there is a miscarriage of justice, because the facts as they're being evinced from people who were on the ground, who saw and heard and experienced, give a different picture than what they're getting from authorities. They can be very helpful.
And when you feel that you are not being treated right, you should speak out. And if people won't listen to you, you need to speak out further.
Is your client one of them? Was he one of the people trying to help? Is your client one of the people who was trying to help the Arbery's?
He was helping that day. Yes, sir.
My son is 8 without a high school education, but he can still answer why he was somewhere and why he was doing what he was doing there. My 3-year-old could answer that question too. However, the fact that Bryan and his attorney have made the very brazen statement of saying that he has no relationship whatsoever with the McMichaels will make an investigation into that pretty easy, because if there is any evidence of any kind of relationship between Roddy Bryan and the McMichaels, it should be fairly simple to find. Ahmaud Arbery was also given an autopsy where no drugs or alcohol were found in his system. Oh, and get this. The police report lists his death as 1:46 p.m., but he is seen on the surveillance footage of the house at 2:13 p.m. And that brings us to the police force who was responsible for investigating this crime. The Glynn County Police Department. It seems they have a track record for protecting their own in what criminal defense attorney Paige Pate calls many prior cases, and each one is a separate Netflix episode. In 2018, Glynn County police officer Lieutenant Robert Sasser killed his estranged wife and her friend before killing himself. Her family is now suing the police department because they say authorities failed to intervene before the murders. See, Lieutenant Robert Sasser had a well-documented history of problematic behavior. In 2010, he and another police officer were involved in a brutal police shooting where they opened fire on a woman who had led them on a low-speed chase. Sasser was not punished and remained on the force after this incident. In 2018, the police department lost its certification with the state because it did not meet basic policing standards. Only 12% of the force was African American, even though 26% of the county's population was black. In 2019, the county's drug task force was disbanded, and a state-led investigation found extensive misconduct by Glynn County police officers, including one who had been caught having sex with a criminal informant. And Glynn County Police Chief John Powell was indicted for perjury and witness tampering just 4 days after the death of Ahmaud Arbery. He is currently on administrative leave. Okay, let's dig into the actual law in this state to try and get some clarity on whether or not these two men acted within the law. Not that it matters to me, because as far as I'm concerned, there's no justification for what happened. But there's people out there who want to accuse me of being biased and race baiting and sensationalizing things to cause unrest. I even got called a T channel because apparently discussing the murder of a young man is gossip now. The citizen's arrest law in Georgia dates back to the Civil War. Since 1863, Georgia has allowed its residents to arrest each other if they have witnessed a crime and if the police are not around. So a law that was created during the time of slavery, when no one had a cell phone and the police were still half a day's horse ride away, is still being used in 2020 when every single one of us has access to a cell phone and the police respond within minutes. 22-year-old Hannah Payne is currently awaiting trial on murder charges for shooting 62-year-old Kenneth Herring, a black mechanic who left the scene of a fender bender last May. Miss Payne was not involved in the crash. She was just a bystander, and she chased Mr. Herring down in her Jeep. She blocked his truck and approached the open driver's side window of his vehicle. She then punched him with her left hand and pointed a 9mm at him with her right hand. She was on the phone with 911 at that time, and the dispatcher told her to stand down, but she can be heard telling Mr. Herring, "Get out of the car," using a vulgarity. A single shot was fired, and Mr. Herring was dead. So simply between this case and the case with Ahmaud Arbery, it seems like the citizen's arrest law is a bad one. So after Jackie Johnson recused herself, George Barnhill comes on the case, and then he recuses himself after Ahmaud's mother wants him to, but not before putting his feelings in writing, which were he felt the McMichaels acted within their rights as they were legally allowed to place someone under citizen's arrest because they believed he was a burglary suspect in their neighborhood. Burglary would mean something had been taken, something had been stolen. The McMichaels had no knowledge of the fishing equipment taken from Mr. English's boat, which he himself claims could have gone missing at any point between leaving Brunswick and arriving to him 2 hours away in Savannah. There were no burglaries, so he couldn't have been a burglary suspect. Barnhill also believes because Ahmaud didn't obey basic commands to stop and tried to grab the gun from Travis was within his right to use deadly force in self-defense due to stand your ground, which establishes a right by which a person may defend oneself or others against threats or perceived threats, even to the point of applying lethal force, regardless of whether safely retreating from the situation might have been possible. So technically then, Ahmaud Arbery was within his rights due to stand your ground, to defend himself against a threat or perceived threat, aka two guys waiting for you with guns. So many people out here saying, why didn't he stop? Why didn't he obey? Well, why should he have to? What authority did Travis and Greg McMichael have over Ahmaud Arbery? Is that how it is in the South? A white man tells you to stop running and you need to listen or you're going to get shot? Could Ahmaud Arbery have turned around and attempted to put Travis under citizen's arrest for pointing a gun at him? And these same people who think Ahmaud should have just obeyed seem to be missing the fact that the McMichaels should have just left the job of arresting people to the police. So doesn't it seem a little ridiculous to have these two laws in the same state, these two contradicting laws? You can place someone under citizen's arrest, but they have the right to stand their ground and use deadly force on you if you do. A private person may arrest an offender if the offense is committed in his presence or within his immediate knowledge. If the offense is a felony and the offender is escaping or attempting to escape, a private person may arrest him upon probable grounds of suspicion. Do we see how this is an issue? Citizen's arrest and stand your ground together. Technically, if I was in Georgia and I didn't like someone, maybe I just wanted them out of the picture, I could just place them under citizen's arrest, claim they attacked me, and then shoot them dead. And that is perfectly legal. There's something wrong with a law that makes that perfectly legal. Why did Ahmaud run after being spotted in the house that day? Well, maybe he was just running. Maybe he knew he wasn't supposed to be on the property and he got scared. But what we do have, like I said, is a culture of inequality in Georgia. Let's reverse it. Let's say it's two black guys who chase after a white guy because they think he just came out of a house under construction. They don't know if he stole anything. They have no proof he stole anything, but they chase him anyways, brandishing guns. Can you imagine the news headline then? Can you imagine the outrage in Georgia because two black guys murdered an innocent white jogger? Can you imagine that these two black men say they were placing him under citizen's arrest because they thought he was a burglar? Thought being the operative word here. Thought is not immediate knowledge. Seeing someone leave an abandoned house isn't immediate knowledge of a felony crime. Since they weren't even close to the homeowner, have no relationship with him, how do they know Ahmaud wasn't there at his request doing work on the property? They didn't know anything. And they didn't stop to ask questions or clarify. They chased after him. I'm not saying they had to do nothing. It's their neighborhood. If they felt unsafe and they don't like strangers wandering about, I get it. But then you call the police. You take a video or a picture or both. Show this stuff to the police, unless the McMichaels didn't have faith that the police would do their job, in which case we have much bigger issues here with the police department and the culture in Brunswick. So I actually watched a really good reaction video to what happened to Ahmaud Arbery, and the YouTuber who posted it, his name is Collian Noir, I believe. He has 1.34 million subscribers, and he appears to be somebody who has some legal knowledge. So it says on Wikipedia that he is an American civil rights activist, lawyer, and host of the web series Noir. So he made this video, and because he's a lawyer and he knows the law, it's a much better way of explaining what happened than I could give you. So I'm going to post the link to his whole video in the description box. It's a worthwhile watch if you want to understand better the legal ramifications. But I am also going to enter here a little clip from his video where he explains things very eloquently, very well, and in legal ways that we can all understand better.
So let's break down what we saw compared to the law. Under Georgia law, a person commits the offense of criminal trespass when he or she knowingly and without authority enters upon the land or premise of another person for an unlawful purpose. Each one of the elements have to be met. Based on the video, what purpose did he walk into the house for, and was the purpose unlawful? According to the video and the owner of the house, he didn't take anything and he didn't force his way in. He just walked around looking. So, is it possible he went to steal something? Yes. Is it possible he went in to find the magical door of Narnia? Yeah, the same way it's possible that he went in simply because he was curious and wanted to look around an unconstructed home like millions of people do every single day. Hell, when my house was being built, I literally walked in on a couple walking through my unconstructed home. I was slightly taken aback, but I wasn't surprised because that's kind of what people do. Yes, there's also video of someone going into that house at night that some people think is Arbery. But to my knowledge, that hasn't been confirmed. However, nothing in those videos that we have shows that he went inside to steal something. However, it does show he walked in, looked around, and then left. Maybe he realized there was nothing to steal. Either way, you can't infer intent based on weak, ambiguous circumstantial evidence. So based on the facts we can't say he went in for an unlawful purpose. More evidence may come out, but from what we have, it doesn't show him taking or stealing anything. So the unlawful purpose element isn't met. How about, did he enter upon the land or premise of another person after receiving, prior to such entry, notice from the owner, rightful occupant, or upon proper identification and authorized representative of the owner or rightful occupant that such entry is forbidden? Long story short, did Arbery have noticed that he could not be on that property? Much the same way a lot of concealed carry laws work, if you carry a gun into an establishment that has a no gun policy, you're not considered trespassing until they tell you to leave and you refuse to do so. There was no one at the house. From what we can see in the video and what was said, there were no doors on the house. And as far as we know, there were no signs saying to keep out or no trespassing. There were no gates or fences. If any of these things existed at the time Arbery went into the house, then yeah, he trespassed. But that's why the operator asked, what did he do wrong? And was he on the premise when he wasn't supposed to be, i.e. the notice element, after he told her it was an open house under construction? So based on this information in the video, the notice element isn't met either. Now, how about the last element? Did Arbery remain upon the land or premise of another person after receiving notice from the owner, right occupant, or upon property identification and authorized representative for the owner or rightful occupant to depart? In short, did anyone tell Arbery to leave the property? And if they did he leave? In the video, you can see Arbery leaving the house when the neighbor showed up outside. He might have been spooked by the neighbor. The neighbor may have said something to him. Either way, he left immediately, which means the last element isn't satisfied either. So, based on the letter of the law and the videos and information we have, and not my feelings, Arbery did not trespass. So now what about burglary? Did Arbery commit a burglary based on these videos? If the video doesn't show him trespassing based on the letter of the law, then you're hard pressed to say they show him engaging in a burglary under the letter of the law, because a burglary requires an intent to commit a felony, which is a higher standard than the unlawful purpose element of a trespass. And based on the video, he was just walking around and looking. You can't infer intent simply because he was walking into the house. If he picked something up and put it in his pocket, got him. If he had a bag and picked up something and put it in his bag, got him. Otherwise, he just walked into a house that was under construction. Based on the video, he didn't break anything. He didn't deface anything. He walked in, looked around, then walked out or ran out. It really doesn't matter. Now, does the video make him look suspect? I can see someone making that argument, but if we're talking facts, there's nothing concrete in the video that we've seen so far. There could be more considering the video was 7 minutes long, but from what has been released, he technically broke no laws. Now let's talk citizen's arrest. Under Georgia law, a private person may arrest an offender if the offense is committed in his presence or within his immediate knowledge. If the offense is a felony and the offender is escaping or attempting to escape, a private person may arrest him upon reasonable and probable grounds of suspicion. There are 4 elements in this law that must be satisfied to justify citizen's arrest. First, a private person may arrest an offender if the offense is committed in his presence or within his immediate knowledge. We have limited video of what Arbery was doing inside the house, but that's all we have. So if based on these limited videos of what he did in the house and that wasn't shown him committing a felony, it stands to reason that no one on the outside of the house saw him commit a felony on the inside of the house, especially considering that the owner said nothing was taken. If the cameras inside the house didn't show him committing a felony inside the house, then You can't say that an offense was committed in their presence or within immediate knowledge when we have video of what happened inside and still can't conclude an offense was committed. Again, based on the information we have in the videos, the only thing that McMichaels actually saw Arbery doing was running down the street. The second element of citizen's arrest says a private person may arrest an offender if the offense is a felony. Trespassing in Georgia is a misdemeanor. Burglary is a felony. As I stated before, nothing in the video shows that he committed a trespass or burglary. So the second element isn't met. Keep in mind, you have to meet all of the elements, and we already can't meet 2 of the elements. So there's no point in even discussing the third one, but I will. The third element, the offender is escaping or attempting to escape. Let's say Arbery got spooked by the neighbor who saw him go inside the house and decided to run. If he was committing a felony, then yes, this element would be met because he was leaving the house, and the neighbor would be able to make a citizen's arrest, because if Arbery actually committed a felony and the neighbor saw it or saw Arbery running out of the house with tools or materials, then he could make that citizen's arrest. But as I showed you before, based on the information we have at this moment, there was no felony. At this point, the fourth element is irrelevant, as we've yet to satisfy the first 3. Under Georgia law, if you make a citizen's arrest and you're wrong about that person violating the law you think they violated, then you can be charged with false imprisonment. Ironically, that was one of the first things I learned in law school. Right now, based on all the facts we have before us, not facts in the future, but right now, what law did he break based on the letter of the law? Not what you feel he broke, but what law he broke based on the letter of the law. If you say none, then right now, based on what we have before us, you can't say with any certainty that McMichael was justified in blocking the road and trying to make a citizen's arrest of Arbery while holding a shotgun. At least not based on the information we have now.
So where does the problem lay here? What can we do to make sure this doesn't happen again? Does the problem lay with Greg and Travis McMichael? Does the problem lay with the citizen's arrest law in Georgia, which is very broad, very open for interpretation, and very outdated? In my opinion, it's both. Greg McMichael was a prior police officer, but he didn't just retire. He was pretty much pushed out. And instead of acting in the way a police officer would, following the law, making sure that there's not unnecessary loss of life, calling one of his buddies at the station and letting them know what's going on, he decided to take matters into his own hands. And once again, I want to stress the fact that does Greg McMichael have the right to make a citizen's arrest when his rights as a police officer to make an arrest were removed? Please go check that video out. It's only 18 minutes and it's really, really worthwhile, and it definitely cleared things up for me. Now, 35 minutes ago, CNN posted an article which says multiple people have trespassed at the home that Ahmaud Arbery visited and was subsequently killed for visiting. But he was the only one who died. It says, homeowner Larry English has confirmed through the release of surveillance videos that multiple people had trespassed at his home, which was under construction. Arbery was the only one killed. CNN obtained 11 surveillance clips spanning from October 25th to February 23 from attorney J. Elizabeth Grady, representing English. On Saturday, 2 of the videos were obtained by CNN prior to this week, and 6 others were sent on Friday. 3 new videos show a man and a woman entering the property, children entering the property, and an unidentified male entering the property on separate occasions. Some of the videos provided were dated October 25th, November 18th, December 17th, February 11th, and February 23rd. The videos with dates were sent to CNN by Grady with the dates as their titles. On October 25th, nighttime video shows a black adult male walking around the house, which is under construction and down to the studs. Within a month, a black adult male is seen in the house on 2 separate videos taken November 18th. The man is shirtless and walks around the home. On December 17th, 3 separate clips show a black adult male walking around the home at night before jogging off empty-handed. On February 11th, a video shows car headlights drive by the home at night before a black adult male is seen walking around the house. The last video, which is the only video that has confirmed to be Arbery, was taken during the day, February 23rd. This shows him walking around the home, which is still under construction. 8 clips were dated, 3 clips, 2 showing children entering the home, and 1 clip showing a man and a woman entering were not dated. So we've got all different types of people entering this house. Men, women, children, and you gotta understand, this isn't a break-in kind of situation. At the most, you can say it's trespassing, but really nobody's even living there. So what's the harm? What's the harm in walking around and checking it out? I mean, is it suspicious that all these people are going and checking it out? I guess. Does it mean something more? It could, but nothing we know of. And I actually had somebody in the first video say, I completely challenge the fact that you have walked around on, properties under construction before. You've never done that. You're lying. I'm not lying. I think I literally have pictures in videos of us doing just that, me and the kids. It's interesting, especially when it's in your own neighborhood, because you want to see, like, do they have a better house than me? It's normal, completely normal. They have videos on YouTube, channels on YouTube, where they specifically do this, like, as their channel topic. That's all they do, is go into abandoned houses and abandoned buildings and places under construction and look at them and take videos. So I guess my whole point is, this isn't right. What happened to Ahmaud isn't right. If he was trespassing, it's still not right. And trespassing isn't a felony. So they had no real right to go chasing after him. And they definitely shouldn't have shot him. And you have these people who are like, well, Ahmaud shouldn't have gone for the gun. Why? I mean, I get it. I wouldn't have, because I would have been scared. But he was probably scared. When you see people pointing guns at you and you're a black man in Georgia, do you maybe think that if you keep running, they might just shoot you in the back? You don't know why they're there. They haven't told you why they're there. They're just yelling orders at you to stop and answer questions. You don't know what they want with you. It has to be terrifying. No one should have to be afraid that they're going to get shot dead in the streets, even if they've done something wrong. We have a legal system for that. And I don't have a problem. Like, let's say you see someone being beaten or killed or someone being attacked. Yeah, go ahead. If you feel brave enough and you feel like you can stop this person, go ahead and try to stop them, because somebody's life is in danger. But if you just see a guy walking around an empty house, there's literally nothing you can steal. Why? What's the point? What is the point? Nobody's life is in immediate danger. So I disagree with what the McMichaels did. I disagree with the law that allegedly allowed them to do it, even though if you look at the law and you listen to the video clips I just played, it really doesn't allow them to do that. And I do think that they should be brought up on charges and put in prison, because if you don't do that, you're sending a message to everyone else that this is acceptable and you can get away with murder. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you think. I mean, if you want to tell me that I'm wrong for even talking about this, thinking about it, being concerned about it, thinking it's a real issue, if you want to say I'm race baiting or I'm trying to cause trouble, people need to speak out for Ahmaud. He's dead. He can't speak out for himself. He can't tell us why he was in that house. He can't tell us if he was doing anything wrong. He needs a voice. And I have a platform to give him that voice, and I'm going to give him that voice as long as it takes. And if it makes you uncomfortable to think that there may be a racial aspect to this, good. It should make you uncomfortable, because I think it would have gone a lot differently had it been a white man or a white woman. I don't think that it would have gotten to this place, and that is awful. No one should have to feel afraid, and no one should have to accept the fact that someone can point a gun at you on a public road, and that's okay. And you have to obey them. And you have to listen to their commands and give them respect, because who the hell are they? They have no authority over Ahmaud or anybody else. So why should he have listened to their commands? He grabbed the gun because he didn't want to get shot, and Travis pulled the trigger 3 times. Even though he only said he pulled it twice. He said he shot him twice. He was shot 3 times. That is truly excessive. You can say you don't think race was involved, but to say that this was 100% right and they were 100% in their legal rights to do this and there's nothing wrong with what happened, you got problems. Thank you guys so much for being here. I love you so much. Stay kind, stay beautiful, stay safe, and stay home. And I'll see you next time. Bye.
Well, the levee don't break now, and the bottle's going straight down.